Love is supposed to be blind, but after seeing these weddings, I'm convinced it's also deaf, illiterate, and possibly concussed. From brides marrying ghosts to grooms suing themselves for emotional distress, welcome to the sacred union of romance and chaos. And believe me, we've only just thrown the first bouquet. 1. In France, one woman's wedding day was missing a pretty major detail: the groom's pulse. Thanks to a law known as posthumous marriage, she got presidential permission to marry her fiancé after he died. The tradition began during World War I to honor fallen soldiers whose brides wanted closure. Today, it's used so often that France basically runs a zombie wedding registry. Guests attend a ceremony where one side of the aisle is filled with relatives, the other with government paperwork and a framed photo. It's morbidly romantic, the only marriage where "till death do us part" already feels like a spoiler alert. 2. South Carolina has a very special way of preventing broken hearts by turning them into misdemeanors. The state actually made it illegal to propose marriage under false pretenses. Translation: if you propose as a joke, you can literally be arrested for it. It's called offenses against morality and decency, which sounds less like a law and more like a church newsletter. So if you think it's funny to drop on one knee at Applebee's and say, "Will you marry me?" Just kidding. Congratulations, you've just committed a romantic felony. In South Carolina, love is legally binding, even when it's not. 3. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, the law has seen some things, specifically people who just won't give up on bad decisions. It's illegal there to remarry the same person more than 3 times. 3 divorces? Totally fine. 4. The state intervenes like a therapist who's finally had enough. It's the legislative version of your best friend grabbing your phone and yelling, "Stop texting your ex." After your 3rd wedding to the same person, the courthouse doesn't even file your paperwork. They just hand you a pamphlet titled "Maybe Try Therapy." 4. Let's talk about Monaco, where your wedding isn't official until the prince himself signs off. Literally, citizens of Monaco must receive royal approval before marrying, and their intent to wed must be publicly posted for 10 days. During that time, anyone, including the prince, can object. It's like The Bachelor, but with paperwork and potential exile. Imagine planning your big day only for the royal office to say, "Yeah, he's cute, but he doesn't really vibe with the monarchy's aesthetic." Nothing like knowing your marriage depends on whether the prince had coffee before checking the inbox. 5. And then there's Montana, home to the world's most commitment-friendly loophole, the double proxy wedding. That's right, in Montana, neither of you has to be present to get legally married. You can both be in different countries while 2 strangers stand in for you in court. Somewhere, 2 complete nobodies say, "I do," and suddenly, congratulations, you're married to someone you've never stood beside. It's the ultimate marriage hack for busy people, introverts, or international spies. Love without eye contact. What could go wrong? 6. Greece has a long history of drama, ancient myths, epic wars, and now, wedding superstitions. According to Greek tradition, getting married during a leap year guarantees disaster. Divorce, bad luck, possibly locusts. Take your pick. Every 4 years, wedding planners go into hibernation because nobody wants to risk an extra day cursing their love life. One survey found that Greek couples will postpone weddings for an entire year rather than tempt fate. It's like watching a nation collectively say, "We trust Zeus more than February." Somewhere, an unlucky groom tried to argue logic and statistics, and his wife just said, "Sure, tell that to Poseidon." 7. In the Philippines, "till death do us part" isn't a vow. It's a legal sentence. Divorce is outright illegal. The only way to end a marriage is through an annulment, which costs more than most weddings and takes years of courtroom agony. It's basically the government saying, "You made this mess, now live in it forever." There are couples who haven't spoken in a decade, but are still married on paper because bureaucracy won't let them quit. The Vatican City's the same way, because of course it is. Somewhere, there's a Filipino lawyer whose business card might as well read, "Marriage, abandon all hope, ye who enter here." 8. In England, one town decided that wedding rings were overrated. Back in the 1600s, a strange local law allowed couples to exchange anything of value as a token of commitment. Coins, livestock, spoons, even gloves. One recorded marriage included a man who gave his bride a literal handful of dirt from his best field. Romantic, if your idea of affection is also a real estate deal. The idea was to show you were giving your wealth to your partner, which sounds poetic until you remember some people's wealth was a single sheep and a good attitude. Love may be eternal, but wool prices definitely weren't. 9. Let's head to Samoa, where marriage once came with a wardrobe requirement: matching tattoos. In traditional ceremonies, couples were tattooed together as a symbol of unity and loyalty. Romantic, sure. Until you remember, tattoos were done with sharpened boar tusks and volcanic ash. The process was so painful that fainting was considered dishonorable. You had to prove your devotion by not screaming. Today, the tradition survives in smaller symbolic designs. But imagine explaining to your grandkids that your wedding band wasn't gold. It was a permanent scar you got while trying not to pass out. Move over, Vegas. Chapel. Samoa invented hardcore commitment. 10. And just when you think bureaucracy couldn't make weddings any weirder, enter China's love exams. For decades, Chinese couples had to pass a written test before the government would approve their marriage license. Questions included things like, what is your partner's favorite color? And what do you plan to do if you disagree? One wrong answer could delay your wedding indefinitely. It was marriage as an academic subject, where chemistry was literally graded. Some couples even cheated off each other's papers, which is technically teamwork, right? Thankfully, the policy was scrapped in the 1980s. Because if you need a multiple-choice test to prove you're in love, the honeymoon's already over. 11. Japan once tried to make love a government project. During the economic boom of the 80s, officials got nervous that citizens were too busy working to reproduce. So they launched state-sponsored matchmaking festivals where singles were herded into parks like romantic livestock and encouraged to pair up for national productivity. Bureaucrats literally tracked marriage success rates like GDP. One minister even proposed love holidays, paid time off for couples to conceive. Nothing says romance like getting an official memo reminding you it's time to get busy for the economy. Imagine calling HR to request a honeymoon extension and hearing approved for the good of the nation. 12. In Sudan, there's an old tribal law that allows a man to marry a goat, but only as punishment. It all started when a man was caught, let's say, getting too friendly with a neighbor's goat. The village elders, trying to restore dignity, ruled that he must marry the animal to make things honorable. The law technically stuck, and to this day it's occasionally cited in local courts. The man even had to pay a dowry to the goat's owner. Somewhere there's a marriage certificate that literally says species caprine. The worst part? According to reports, the goat died shortly after, which means the man became both a husband and a widower within the same week. Truly, love is fleeting. 13. Nevada, America's glittering capital of impulsive romance, once had a drive-through wedding chapel that offered curbside ceremonies in under 2 minutes. You didn't even have to get out of the car. Just roll down your window, say, "I do," and honk for confirmation. It was marriage with the efficiency of fast food and the emotional depth of a combo meal. The Chapel of Love even had a 24-hour neon sign reading, "Open for Eternity." And because it's Vegas, they didn't discriminate. They once married a couple dressed as Batman and a slice of pizza. At that point, you're not starting a life together. You're starting a meme with legal consequences. 14. In India, one man's wedding didn't go exactly as planned because he accidentally married the wrong woman. During a massive village wedding with multiple couples tying the knot simultaneously, a power outage plunged the ceremony into darkness. When the lights came back on, everyone just kept going. Only later did the families realize that several brides and grooms had mismatched during the blackout. The official solution? Everyone just swapped later that night. Imagine discovering on your wedding night that your spouse was technically married to Steve 2 hours ago, but we fixed it. It's less of a wedding and more of a human game of musical chairs, with legal paperwork. 15. And in Germany, a bride's ultimate act of devotion once involved taking her husband's last name literally. In a small Bavarian village, a woman named Anna Vogel married Hans Vogel, and because Vogel means bird, they released 48 pigeons to symbolize eternal love. Unfortunately, the birds circled back and pooped on the guests, including the priest. The event was immortalized in local papers as the wedding where heaven objected. The newlyweds later opened a bird sanctuary together. Mostly, locals joked to keep their witnesses close. Somewhere in Bavaria, there's a saying, if you love someone, set them free. but maybe not 48 at once. 16. In India, love doesn't always require a pulse, nor even a person. Some regions have a centuries-old ritual called Pritam Viva, or ghost marriage, where the living marry the deceased to correct cosmic imbalances or fulfill family duty. Families go through full ceremonies with flowers, music, and feasts, just minus the groom's pulse. In one famous case, a woman married a photograph of her fiancé, who died in an accident. The government approved it, legally recognizing her as a widow of someone who'd never been her husband. It's the only relationship where forgetting an anniversary is technically impossible because your spouse is already haunting you. 17. Sweden once outlawed the wrong kind of enthusiasm at weddings. In the 19th century, Swedish authorities decided people were celebrating too loudly during rural ceremonies. To preserve moral decency, they banned excessive cheering, loud singing, and, I kid you not, joyful dancing. Police officers were dispatched to monitor receptions and hand out fines for festive overexertion. Imagine your wedding day ending with a ticket for emotional noise pollution. Sorry folks, love's okay, but happiness is a misdemeanor. It was eventually repealed, but only after too many Swedes had been arrested for the crime of cutting loose at their own weddings. 18. In Thailand, one unlucky man literally married himself. And it wasn't a metaphor. After his fiancée tragically died before their wedding, he held the ceremony anyway, wearing a tuxedo and exchanging vows with her body. The entire community attended, treating it as a solemn romantic gesture rather than the single most unsettling rom-com ever filmed. The wedding video went viral. Half the internet cried, the other half asked, "Wait, did he just kiss the corpse?" It's a heartbreaking story, but also proof that in Thailand, commitment issues mean something very different. 19. In Mexico, the mayor of a small town once made headlines for marrying a crocodile. The reptile, dressed in a white gown and veil, was said to represent a mythical princess who would bring prosperity to the town. The ceremony included dancing, mariachi music, and an awkward moment when the groom had to kiss the bride. Locals cheered, the priest probably questioned his career choices, and the crocodile, mercifully, was muzzled. The mayor later described it as a symbolic union between nature and humanity. Sure, but it also looked like someone accidentally combined National Geographic with The Bachelor. 20. In California, one woman married the Eiffel Tower. Yes, the one in Paris. She flew across the Atlantic, held a ceremony beneath the structure, and legally changed her name to Erica Eiffel. She claimed the tower's metallic structure and engineering perfection represented her ideal partner. When asked if the relationship was fulfilling, she replied that it had its ups and downs. Ironically, the French government later banned marriage to inanimate objects after that case, proving even Paris has limits when it comes to love. Imagine being so weird in love that France says, "Non, merci." 21. Alaska once passed a law forbidding people from whispering in someone's ear while they were moose hunting. But here's the twist. The law was written by a senator trying to stop his wife from proposing mid-hunt. According to local lore, she thought it would be romantic to pop the question while he was lining up a shot. The whisper startled him. He missed the moose and his dignity forever. The next day, he introduced legislation banning romantic distractions during wildlife pursuits. So yes, in Alaska, marriage proposals are now officially listed under dangerous activities. Love hurts, but sometimes it also startles. 22. In 1950s America, there was a matchmaking trend called Marry a Farmer Week, where urban women were encouraged to find husbands in the Midwest. Sponsored by agricultural boards and radio ads, it was basically Tinder with tractors. Women would take trains to rural towns, attend barn dances, and be courted by local bachelors competing for wives like it was the Iowa State Fair. The campaign's slogan? "A man with land makes a great husband." Thousands of marriages came from it, proving that even in the age before apps, love was mostly about location, and a reliable irrigation system. 23. In South Korea, a superstition claims that marrying someone born in the year of the tiger brings bad luck for both families. One study showed marriage rates actually drop during tiger years. Parents go into full panic mode, astrologers make a fortune, and couples postpone weddings just to avoid cosmic judgment. The irony? Divorce rates spike the following year, meaning the superstition kind of fulfills itself. It's the only time in history when people literally said, "Sorry, it's not you, it's your zodiac." 24. In the 1800s, Hungarian villages had a strange rule. If a man was too shy to propose, his mother could legally do it for him. Mothers would approach potential brides with the phrase, "My son's heart is ready, are you?" which is both poetic and wildly awkward. Imagine being proposed to by your future mother-in-law while the groom hides behind a curtain. Some women actually accepted out of pity. Others declined with the traditional response, "His heart may be ready, but I am not." The practice was eventually banned after too many engagements ended with men realizing their moms had better love lives than they did. 25. And finally for this round, Scotland's legendary blackening of the bride. In rural areas, it's traditional for friends and family to ambush the bride before her wedding, tie her to a pole, and cover her in rotten eggs, fish guts, and molasses. It's supposed to prepare her for the hardships of marriage, because nothing says lifelong devotion like smelling like a bait shop for 72 hours. The practice still happens today, with slightly less fish, and locals swear it brings good luck. Sure, if your idea of good luck is starting married life needing both therapy and a pressure washer. 26. In Denmark, romance once had a curfew. For centuries, couples couldn't get married during harvest season because the church decided farmers were too distracted by lust to focus on crops. If you tied the knot while wheat was being cut, the priest could find you a cow. Literally, a cow. Nothing kills the honeymoon vibe faster than realizing your first joint asset is now property of the clergy. One poor farmer tried to outsmart the rule by marrying at midnight between planting and harvest season. The priest called it creative sinning and charged him double. Truly, Denmark invented the world's first subscription fee for romance. 27. In Texas, there's a law that still allows marriage by declaration, meaning you can fill out a form stating you're married, and congratulations you are. No ceremony, no witnesses, no ring, just government paperwork and a shared delusion. The idea dates back to frontier times when priests were scarce, but loneliness was abundant. Some couples today still use it because it's romantic in a vintage way. Sure, if your idea of romance involves signing the same form as a voter registration, it's the only marriage license where you don't need to say, "I do." You just need to say, "Hey, that'll do." 28. In medieval Poland, the church briefly allowed proxy weddings with a twist. The stand-in for the absent groom didn't have to be human. One infamous case involved a nobleman marrying through his dog. Because the groom was at war, his family dressed the hound in a tuxedo, stood it before the altar, and the priest went through the vows. It was legally binding, until the Vatican found out and lost its holy mind. The marriage was annulled, the priest was excommunicated, and somewhere in heaven, an angel probably wrote, "Humans officially out of ideas." 29. Ancient Rome turned weddings into political theater. Senators would sometimes marry their daughters to statues of dead emperors to gain social status. Yes, they legally wedded marble. The logic: if you were related to a divine emperor, your family got prestige. There were full ceremonies where the bride would stand beside a stone bust, vow eternal love, and then go home alone, thankfully. Roman historians called it a spiritual alliance. Modern scholars call it an ancient PR stunt. Imagine explaining to your parents that you're married to a statue because it's networking. 30. In Argentina, one wedding went viral for a single sneeze. During the ceremony, the bride sneezed mid-vow and accidentally blurted out "sigh" before the priest finished the question. The officiant, sticking to tradition, immediately declared the couple married. The bride tried to protest, but the priest insisted, "You already agreed before God and your nasal passages." The story became national news, and the couple stayed married just to avoid more embarrassment. It's proof that in Argentina, even your allergies are legally binding. 31. In the 19th century, France had a wedding so scandalous that it caused a law change. A man proposed to two women simultaneously, sending identical love letters, and both said yes. When the lie came out, both families sued, and the judge ruled that since both engagements were publicly announced, the man had to marry both women. He legally couldn't, of course, but the chaos led to France outlawing multiple engagement contracts. The newspapers called him the two-time groom, and somewhere in history, a lawyer probably muttered, "We're going to need bigger rings." 32. In the U.S. state of Delaware, A 1913 law required that all wedding announcements be published in a local paper at least 10 days before the ceremony, not to inform the guests, but to give the public a chance to object. The idea was transparency, but what it really did was turn every small-town wedding into a community vote. Rival suitors, bitter exes, and nosy neighbors could send letters to the county clerk claiming moral objections. It was basically the 20th century version of a Facebook comments section, full of drama, jealousy, and bad spelling. 33. Speaking of objections, the "speak now or forever hold your peace" tradition comes from an old English law that actually required it. Marriages were publicly announced for 3 consecutive Sundays, and if anyone objected, the wedding couldn't proceed until the claim was investigated. That meant if your ex wanted to ruin your big day, all they needed was good timing and free Sundays. The church tried to prevent incest and fraud, but mostly created the first-ever reality show, Interrupting Weddings Live. Somewhere in 1300s London, a man probably yelled, "I object," just because he was bored. And boom, free entertainment for the week. 34. In the 1960s, an Italian man attempted to fake his death to escape marriage and accidentally sparked a nationwide manhunt. He staged a boat accident and vanished before his wedding day, only to be found weeks later, living under a fake name in Switzerland. The police charged him with fraud and emotional deception, a real legal category at the time. His fiancée famously told reporters, "I would have preferred a simple no." The story was so infamous that for decades afterward, Italian newspapers referred to runaway grooms as doing a Giuseppe. If ghosting had a patron saint, it'd be this guy. 35. And finally for this round, in 17th century Wales, there was a bizarre wedding custom called hand fasting, where couples literally tied their hands together with ribbons for a year to test the relationship. If they still liked each other after 12 months of being physically bound, the marriage became permanent. If not, they just untied the knot, hence the phrase, tying the knot. The flaw? People cheated by secretly untying themselves at night. Some priests began supergluing the ribbons shut to prevent fraud. Romantic? Sure. Practical? Absolutely not. Nothing says forever love like waking up with circulation issues. 48. Kanalskazal, 36. In the Victorian era, one British lord decided wedding vows needed a rebrand. He rewrote the ceremony to include the phrase, "And I shall love thee unless thou age poorly." His fiancée agreed, thinking it was a joke, until he had it notarized. Newspapers called it the vanity marriage. Ironically, the lord lost his fortune, went bald, and his wife stayed looking 25. She divorced him and married his lawyer. Moral of the story? Never put fine print in your vows when karma's proofreading. 37. In 1980s California, one couple was so obsessed with Disneyland that they held their ceremony on the It's a Small World ride. They exchanged vows mid-boat, surrounded by animatronic children singing in 20 languages. The minister had to shout over the music, and the groom said, "I do," right as a puppet yodeled. Later, Disney banned weddings inside rides because the ceremony technically broke park safety laws. The couple's marriage lasted 6 months, probably because the song never left their heads. The happiest place on earth, not after that honeymoon. 38. In medieval France, marriage wasn't just between people. It was also between families' ghosts. The superstition claimed that if 2 families feuded, the angry spirits would curse any union. To prevent it, priests performed exorcism weddings, blessing not just the couple but their ancestors. Candles, chanting, sometimes even a coffin on stage. It was less a wedding and more a paranormal legal proceeding. If the candles blew out mid-vow, the marriage was considered doomed. Picture it, your wedding day, and grandma's ghost is the maid of honor. 39. Iceland once had a matchmaking database run by the government. Because the island's population is small and genetically tight-knit, they built an app that let people check if their potential partner was a relative. The motto was, "Bump phones before you bump beds." It's both hilarious and practical. One couple discovered they were third cousins right before their wedding and calmly rescheduled the ceremony after deleting half their family tree. It's the only dating app that's both Tinder and Ancestry.com rolled into one. 40. In 19th century China, the concept of ghost marriages went corporate. Some wealthy families began hiring bride brokers to find recently deceased women so their unmarried sons could marry in the afterlife. Corpses were bought and sold on the black market. It got so out of control that the government had to pass a law banning posthumous matchmaking. Imagine explaining that your family business is spiritual wedding planning. It's the only job where your clients never complain or breathe. 41. In 2005, an Indian man married his pet snake, a cobra he claimed he loved in a past life. Hundreds of villagers attended, cheering as the priest performed rituals to bless the union. The bride, understandably, did not respond. When reporters asked him why, he said, "She listens better than most women." That quote made international headlines and probably made his mother stop answering the phone forever. A few months later, the snake slithered away, making her the only spouse in history to literally ghost her husband. 42. Ancient Egypt took marriage documentation to divine extremes. Couples often wrote vows on papyrus and then buried them in tombs as contracts with the gods. One preserved scroll reads, "If thou seek another woman, may the crocodiles take thee." It's possibly the first recorded prenup, and the first time someone weaponized wildlife for fidelity enforcement. Archaeologists say the papyrus was beautifully written in ink and passive aggression. Somewhere, Cleopatra's ghost is nodding in approval. 43. In Las Vegas, a prank once created a real marriage between two complete strangers. A bachelorette party bribed an Elvis impersonator to fake marry their friend to a random guy at the bar. Unfortunately, the chapel they used had actual legal authority, and the paperwork was filed before anyone sobered up. They woke up the next day to find they were legally wed. It took 6 months and 2 court hearings to undo. The Elvis officiant later said, "It's not the first time I've accidentally married people, but it was the funniest." 44. During World War II, some soldiers couldn't get leave to marry, so the U.S. military invented telegraph weddings. The couple would exchange vows via Morse code, .. for "I do." Military clerks then signed the paperwork on their behalf. It was efficient, impersonal, and somehow still romantic. One general called it marriage at the speed of sound. After the war, one woman admitted she'd accidentally sent her vows to the wrong soldier. He politely replied, "Ma'am, I believe you have the wrong fiancé." 45. In 2010, a Chinese millionaire tried to throw the biggest wedding in history by renting an entire city block, hiring 500 doves, 80 luxury cars, and a marching band. Unfortunately, local officials canceled it mid-ceremony because he forgot to get a noise permit. The wedding cost $4 million and ended with the groom explaining to reporters, "We are now spiritually married, just not legally." The doves were released anyway, promptly pooped on his Rolls-Royce, and the footage became viral proof that even money can't buy timing or municipal approval. 46. In 18th century Scotland, Gretna Green became famous for runaway weddings. Why? Because English law required parental consent for anyone under 21, but Scotland didn't. Thousands of couples sprinted across the border to wed at the first house they found, a blacksmith's shop. The anvil priest would hammer a piece of iron to seal the union. He wasn't a real priest, just a guy with good branding. Even today, people reenact those elopements for fun, making Gretna Green the world's longest-running wedding loophole, and possibly the first romantic tax dodge. 47. In Canada, one woman's husband forgot their anniversary so many years in a row that she filed for divorce, and the judge denied it, calling forgetfulness insufficient grounds. The ruling went viral, and the husband immediately bought ad space in the Toronto Star with the headline, "Happy Anniversary, Janet." Romantic? Maybe. Desperate damage control? Definitely. The paper later ran a follow-up when Janet divorced him anyway, on their anniversary. Truly, poetic symmetry is the ultimate revenge. 48. And our grand finale. In 2019, a couple in India sued their wedding photographer, not for bad pictures, but for too many pictures. The album contained 2,500 edited shots, and they claimed emotional distress from excessive smiling. The court case lasted 2 years, during which the couple separated. When the judge asked if they'd reconcile, the groom said, "Not after seeing those photos again." Somewhere, a lawyer added over-documentation trauma to his resume. It's the perfect modern marriage story, overshared, over-edited, and doomed by the algorithm. And there you have it, 48 weddings proving that love might be blind, but paperwork sure isn't. Which one deserves a medal for stupidity? Vote for your favorite disaster in the comments below. And remember, folks, always read the fine print before you say, "I do."